Ethics and advocacy. What are values, morals, and ethics? Values are the ideals or beliefs to which an individual or group aspires. Morals relate to the making decisions between right and wrong. And ethics is the articulation of standards of behavior that reflect those values and morals. So how do we get expert capacity? Well, this 40-hour training. Um, this 40-hour training will give you a lot of knowledge, and it'll give you insight to the work we do and how we work and why we work this way. But really, once you get your feet on the ground and you start doing the work, you'll see a lot of this training come to light. Knowledge. Knowing the root causes of sexual violence, the nature of trauma when it comes to sexual violence, the complexity of trauma and the healing process, the capabilities and limitations of one's expertise, personal wellness and self-care, mutual support in relationships with colleagues and staff. We have a pretty laid back office here in Bemidji, and even though we're pretty laid back, we still have each other's back. We do vent to each other, and that's one thing that's nice, is we're able to vent to each other, and with very minimal judgment. We may make a funny comment just to try to make you laugh in the moment, but in all seriousness, that support is really there. Professional integrity. So we're going to use the victim-centered approach. Ethical and appropriate boundaries with not only staff but victims and survivors. Survivors, self-determination and self-agency. They are able to, pick their decisions and self-advocate for themselves. Listening generously and respecting victims and survivors' decision making. Again, this goes back to maybe they're drinking to cope. Values, responsibility to the highest standards of the field, current knowledge of community resources, victim rights, other disciplines and roles and responsibilities. we have a cool little handout of a lot of resources here in town. So we keep those on us. So we always have those. And knowing the victim's rights, their right to confidentiality, their right to file, the right to So, values, genuine regard for all survivors. We're going to maintain a non-discrimination basis. This goes race, ethnicity, language, nationality, sex or gender, age, sexual orientation, ability, social status, economic status, education, marital status, religious affiliation, immigration status, or HIV status. None of those should affect our work, right? We look at each person as their own individual and who they are. Doesn't matter who they are or what their sexual orientation is. Also going into using, asking their pronouns. Do you prefer he, she, her, they, their, those kind of things. Actively examining one's history, belief systems, values, needs, and limitations, and their effect on providing. Alright, how can we be advocates for social change? We're going to maintain, practice, and articulate a commitment to social justice, working actively towards legislative, policy, and social change, working to challenge and change harmful social norms, basic ethical principles, informed consent, mandated reporting of child abuse, suicidal and homicidal threats. If you have a client that's making those, it is 100% need to be reported. Confidentiality. It's hard when you do mandated reports to feel like you're upholding confidentiality, but it's protecting safety. But confidentiality in other forms, when our clients come in and talk to us in the office and there's no suicidal, homicidal, or child abuse going on, and they're talking to us, we're not taking that outside of our office. We're not taking that. Maybe we need to debrief with each other, but we're not taking that outside and going somewhere and be like, I have this client that did this and this and this and this and this and this, and maybe it's going to give away an identifying factor and they're going to figure out who it is. And the right to self-determination. General ethical standards. We do no harm. We don't want to harm them any more than they've already been harmed. Promote the good of a survivor. You did really good at this. Let's work on this. Be fair to all parties involved. Keep your word. And maintain confidentiality unless disclosure is required, for example, in a mandated report. So we're going to foster and respect the survivor's right to information and make decisions based off that information. Informed consent. So maybe they give us some information and we're like, maybe you would benefit from this better. And if they decide, okay, yes, or okay, no, then we have to respect that information, right? We have to respect that we're offering, and then they're saying nope, so they're not giving consent. Avoid conflicts of interest. Maybe it's someone you went to school with and they come in as a client and you're like, oh, nope, I know this person really well. I'd rather not do this. That is the conflict of interest. Avoid dual roles in relations to the survivor or their family. That's where multiple advocates can come in instead of being an advocate for the mom and an advocate for the daughter, or an advocate for the dad and an advocate for the son. Represent accurately your own abilities, authority, and power. If we don't show these things, it's easy for even us to get taken advantage of. Defining boundaries. It's the line between appropriate sharing for two individuals and what is invasive or inappropriate. Physical, behavioral, emotional. So why are boundaries important in advocacy? Well, if we're sharing something that isn't appropriate for our victims or survivors, it can do them more harm, or it could cause them to feel unease, which we don't want to do that. So that's really building up those boundaries to like, okay, this is what we can share, this is what we cannot share. We can't hug each other, we can't do these things. Not saying a victim can give you a hug, but it's setting those boundaries like, hey, I don't want to be hugged. Let's do this. Let's do a fist bump. Let's do thumbs up to each other, that kind of thing. So I'm going to leave these next couple of slides up to you to read. And if you don't understand, please feel free to reach out and ask for an explanation. I think by reading these on your own and me not explaining them will help you understand it. And just again, if you have any questions, reach out. So I really want to quick touch on these questions. Whose responsibility is it to monitor boundaries? As advocates, it is our responsibility to monitor boundaries. It can also be on the victim or survivor to monitor boundaries, just because it helps them learn boundaries too. Maybe new boundaries they didn't have before the sexual assault. When it comes to working with staff, I think definitely it's on us as a person to monitor our boundaries, but also not to be, in hopes that if we maybe cross a boundary, maybe somebody will pull us aside and say, hey, like, I didn't like this, or I felt maybe this was a little abrasive, that they can talk to us and we can understand that. Is self-disclosure of victimization ever appropriate? If you feel it would help your victim or survivor they're like, you don't understand what I've been through, maybe like, I do understand. And, it's 100% up to you if you wish to self-disclose, but only if you feel it's appropriate for your victim or survivor. signs unresolved issues may be coming up. We might be not purposely encouraging the victim to express anger they have not begun to feel. Criticizing the victim's friends, partner, or family for not being supportive or sensitive enough. Becoming angry, sad, or frustrated with the victim when they do not respond to what we expect as an advocate. If any of these things are coming up, please reach out to another advocate, or Ashley or Caroline. So, if we feel like maybe this isn't a good fit for a survivor, maybe some, past traumas coming up, we can do a self-examination and talk to our supervisors and figure out if this is a good fit, not a good fit, what's going on with us. A good advocate knows our limitations. If we can't handle it, we really need to speak up and understand that you may not be effective with every victim or survivor. Maybe for some reason they don't like your tone of voice, or they don't like your voice in general. It does happen. It could be just one of those circumstances too.